can't decay. No, feel the fury inside, try to bury my pride, but I'll rob the grave. Death, become my blade once more. Carrying a cross and the hilt's already fading. Leather in my grip, I never miss my swing. River running red from the dead, escaping. Heaven or hell, take the land between. And I bear this weight that I'm under, and no force could tempt a needle. I bend for honor only, know this seal, it's not real. This shattered will define a spirit burning and honest. My demons paralyzed, terrified. They branded sacrifice, so tarnished early and often. My fury justified. Sealed up my fate and break the embers. All scarlet taste, my blade remembers. Temper my crown, yeah, I wield what can't decay. No, feel the fury inside, try to bury my pride, but I'll rob the grave. My skin to stone, my flesh to iron. This gravity is daunting. The poison breath, this blind of death cannot infect my conscience. Cause I've been here before, bloodstained wounds on altered doors. And I wish I was more, but I jail my doubts and errant souls, yeah. This shattered will define a spirit burning and honest. My demons paralyzed, terrified. They branded sacrifice, so tarnished early and often. My fury justified. I decide. Sealed up my fate and break the embers. All scarlet taste, my blade remembers. Temper my crown, yeah, I wield what can't decay. No, feel the fury inside, try to bury my pride, but I'll rob the grave.
And we are live. Hello, all you BC WrestlePod nerds out there, and welcome to another episode of Grapple Gurus, your PPV and PLE review show here on the BC WrestlePod network / channel / whatever conglomeration of words that you want to use to describe what we do here. I am one of your hosts, Mikey, and joining me this evening for the final time for now is Mr. A to Z himself, Andrew. Andrew, thank you for being here. It's a little bit of a bittersweet, but as you said on the ROH review, it is not goodbye. It is I will see you later. So that's what's holding everything together in here.
Well, I'll still be around for some of the big shows and, stay in contact. So
For sure. And then also be quippy when we complain about certain things in wrestling, which is fantastic, by the way. Unfortunately, our third co-host, Will Papa, also could not be here tonight because thunderstorms decided to cause a power outage at his house. And his phone is at 35%, so it's not going to make it through the whole review. So he unfortunately is bummed he cannot be here, but he wishes Andrew the best of luck. And literally, we'll see him next month for Bound for Glory. So technically, it's not even that long. But we are here to review TNA's Emergence PLE. This is coming off of weeks of build up from Slammiversary to this. And Andrew, if I'm being honest, this pay-per-view left me with lots of questions and more than answers or so. Like, where are we going from here? And we literally have 2 weeks until Victory Road. So me and Will will be back here in 2 weeks with another pay-per-view. I hate these 2-week turnarounds that TNA does from time to time. They're not fun, Andrew. But Emergence left me with questions.
yeah, I don't want to go into it too much because I'll be hitting on it as we go through the review. But if I'm remembering correctly, because Emergence was when I joined last year, so
Emergence last year was great. We had Sonata versus Jake, and that match ruled.
That's
crazy.
Yeah. Let's just go on with the review because I have some feelings about some of this stuff.
Same. I have feelings, thoughts, concerns, worries, slight perturbedness. So let's get into it. We are going to go through this as we normally do. We're going to cover the countdown show first before going into the main card. So we had 2 matches on the countdown, and we kick off our countdown show for Emergence with a singles bout between Kushida and Frankie Kazarian. This match got made that stemmed from one of the Ultimate X qualifying matches between Kushida, Frankie Kazarian, Alex Hammerstone, or just Hammerstone and TNA. Hammerstone ended up going on to Ultimate X, and Frankie Kazarian beat up Kushida after said match. So Santino made this match official for the countdown show. I'm going to be completely honest, Andrew. Like, I feel that this was one of the better matches that we saw this evening. And I'm kind of sad that it wasn't on the main card somewhere.
Yeah, I had this feeling a lot throughout this show. This match was good. It was a very solidly wrestled match. Nothing against the two of them. But this could have been an Impact match.
It could have been a weekly television match.
Yes. I honestly think the better choice would have been putting Kazarian into the Ultimate X match, and I'll go more into that when we get into that match. Because this match, like a few other matches, kind of did feel like we want to have them on the show and we don't have anywhere else for them to go. But yeah, like I said, I'll touch more on my overall feelings because of how things were built up. But technically, great job. They did what they usually do in the ring. The way that the finish came is the way you would expect in this kind of match, and kind of basically protected both of them, but it was a weekly match.
Yeah. Frankie Kazarian ultimately pulls out the victory here. Again, this is still a good match, but not for a pay-per-view, especially since the 3 matches we had on the Countdown to Slammiversary. And also, Kushida was also on that countdown show, and that was a better match between him and Rich Swann, especially because Kushida came out in that awesome secondary version of his character, which is great. Poor Frankie. I think Frankie should have been in the Ultimate X. We'll talk about it when we get to the Ultimate X, because I also have feelings about the Ultimate X match. But we finish off the countdown show with our second match, which when we got this announced, this was PCO versus to be determined. Matt Cardona, the person in charge over in GCW at the moment, said he was going to be bringing in a monster to face PCO. And so I got excited because I figured that he was going to bring some folks from GCW, like Galeno del Sol would have been hilarious. even like if it was a joke, like Mr. Broski too would have been hilarious. But people from GCW would have been great. But instead, we got Shira. No offense to Shira, but immediately red flags went off for me. And I was already disappointed. And then that disappointment turned into worry because PCO hurt himself in the middle of this match, which definitely did not help the overall feeling of this match. This was a short bout, Andrew. Like, first, let's talk about Shira before we go into the injury, because that was Matthew Cardona. You lied to me, and I have beef with you now.
Yeah, I mean, there were so many ways they could have gone with this. If we were going to go serious and actually bring in a monster, I think you wasted both Khan and Madman Fulton. You could have brought in another tag team. Hell, it could have been the Good Hands being the tag team that Cardona just used, or some other group in that previous tag match, and used either Khan or Madman Fulton as the monster that he brought in, especially because Khan has a history and they with PCO, and they both have history at TNA. If you were going to go silly, like make it a joke, like, oh, I've got a monster, there are other people that we could have also brought in. Hell, and don't get me wrong, I don't know what's going on with some of the wrestlers, but this would have been a great time to bring back Crazy Steve.
That's what I was thinking too. I'm like, where is it? We talked about this like last week. We're like, where has Crazy Steve been?
But it was such a letdown because we've been building up into this thing, and I don't know if it's because when things were planned, they couldn't do what they originally wanted to do. But it was like we've had these buildups like, ooh, something's going to happen, and then it's just a letdown. And who knows, maybe after this, which obviously because of what happened during the match and injuries, we may not get a payoff on it, but maybe the plan was that it's supposed to be these letdowns, so then that way we have a payoff when Santino gets back at Cardona, and we could still have something at least with Cardona and Santino. But it just kind of felt pointless. It felt like a letdown. And then the fact that PCO got hurt like part of the way through the match was shorter. I don't know if it was always going to be that short, but it just kind of brought me down even more, and especially because now I also wonder what's going to happen with the titles that PCO holds and the storyline that we've been getting. So this wasn't a great way to kick off the show, especially with this being the final match of the countdown.
No. And, we here at BC WrestlePod, at least the TNA boys, me and Andrew, at least when we talk back and forth, to me, the countdown show should be utilized to make people who don't necessarily watch TNA be like, do I want to buy this pay-per-view? And, I am a biased TNA fan through and through. I love this company. I love all the talent involved, but I also got to keep it 100 here, and my credibility as a wrestling YouTuber / Twitch streamer when it comes to this stuff. This countdown show did not make me want to buy Emergence, which is sad because the actual main card, which we'll talk about, had some bright moments, and overall I thought it was a solid show, but it was also plagued with some unfortunate stuff and left me feeling disappointed. We'll get to that. But the countdown show did not make me want to buy the pay-per-view if I was a new fan, which is unfortunate because JVL said the same thing when he substituted in to help me with Against All Odds. And we said the same thing. Against All Odds countdown show did not make him excited for the pay-per-view. So TNA, we got to be strategic and smart. I'm going to be honest, like, you should have some of the explosion matches be put on the countdown show. Like, some of those end up being better than the countdown show matches sometimes, and I'm like, we could do that instead. Even if it's local talent versus established star, it'd be fantastic.
Yeah, where were people like Giselle Shaw and Tasha Steeles, like Zaya Brookside? Where were some of those people that we could have brought in to see them perform? Didn't we just sign Saint and Sinner? Like,
where were they?
There's yeah.
I don't know if he was in the UK, but you could have thrown Leon Slater in here.
Yeah.
Kevin Knight was at, Capital Collision for New Japan like a couple days ago.
Yeah.
We could have grabbed him. Like, I don't know. But this countdown show was a severe letdown, and it definitely did not start off the night correct, because after these two matches, we head into the main card, and we opened up Emergence with our Ultimate X match, where if you are not familiar with the gimmick, the Ultimate X is you literally, well, usually it's an X, but in this case, you had the X Division Championship hanging elevated in the ring with two red ropes making an X. And the way you win this match is you have to climb up the scaffolding, cross the ropes, grab the title, and you have to land in the ring while holding the title. If you do not, then it becomes a free-for-all of whoever gets it first. If you grab the title and both feet hit the ring, then you are the champion. So we had a series of qualifying matches over the last couple weeks to get people in here. And these were the final 6 that we got. We had Zachary Wentz, Hammerstone, our X Division champion, Speedball Mike Bailey, one half of the Good Hands, Jason Hodge, representing NXT and Chase U, Riley Osborne, and Laredo Kid. So I'm going to be honest, Andrew. Normally, I love Ultimate X. It's one of my favorite matches. Last year, the last time we had an Ultimate X match, besides the 1000th episode, a Feaster Fired, which was also fantastic, by the way. We had a tag team Ultimate X match where ABC successfully defended their titles in an Ultimate X against the Motor City Machine Guns. And that match was baller. I was excited for this. By the end of this match, I was kind of deflated. I was like, this did not live up to what I wanted it to be. I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed like a parent. I'm like, what happened? And I'm also perplexed. I'm confused because, spoiler alert, Speedball Mike Bailey walked into this match as champion. He is no longer champion by the end of it. So I got questions. And I think I kind of answered my own question when I watched a little bit of No Mercy, which I can speculate. But let's talk about the match itself. I don't know about you, Andrew. I was disappointed. How did you feel about our Ultimate X? And then let's just run through our issues with it.
I felt like it was a little short. I felt like it was lacking some of the substance that previous Ultimate X matches have. Like they have some depth to them and some tension to them, and I never really felt that with this. I think part of the biggest problem was I think it should have been 4 people in it, not 6. I think we definitely could have gotten rid of Laredo Kid. I think we could have gotten rid of Riley Osborne. Like, it was for Riley Osborne, cool. You got to wrestle an Ultimate X match. You got to be in TNA on a pay-per-view or PLE. But ultimately, he didn't really bring anything to it. Jason Hodge, I think we could have done without. But I will say he did amazing with the opportunity he was given, because we don't get to see much of him, especially as a singles competitor. But I think you have Zachary Wentz, Hammerstone, and Mike Bailey, and then you put someone like Kazarian in there, or if you weren't going to put him in the later tag team match, you could have had Casey Navarro win his, and he would have been a great addition to this because he's phenomenal, and especially working with the other 3. So I think having less people in it and different competitors would have given each of the competitors a chance to really shine, build up some more depth and tension. Like, honestly, I thought when they were going to go, the first time they went up there, it looked like someone was already going to pull the title down. I was like, are you serious? This match is going to be over already? And then I was super not happy about Mike Bailey losing the title, because he just went through all this stuff to beat Mustafa Ali, who had this incredible title run, had an amazing match to beat Ali, and he hasn't really done anything. He hasn't been given a chance to do much with it. And so now he's lost it. So I don't know what they're going to do with Mike Bailey. I hope it's something good, because if not, I feel like one of the 2 places he was really getting the credit he deserves was in TNA, the other one being GCW. And if they're not going to use him properly, that kind of sucks, because I feel like that's them doing the same thing that a lot of other people would, like how he doesn't get the recognition that he deserves. The flip side of that is, especially after watching the video package that we got later for Zachary Wentz, as bummed as I am about Mike Bailey, I can't be mad at Zachary Wentz for winning this, because it clearly meant a lot to him. It was clearly a huge moment for him, and big credit to him. And I hope that when they took the title off Bailey and put it on Wentz, they're going to do something interesting with Zach Wentz. The because that has to mean something. They have to do it for a purpose. I'd even be down for a Bailey Wentz rivalry or something. I don't know if they're planning on moving Bailey back to work with Trent Seven and have them go more into the tag team division or whatever, but it leaves me worried. It leaves me more worried than hopeful, but there's still a little bit of hope. I've become such a fan of Mike Bailey that I just don't want to see them misused, and I want to see them get the credit that like they deserve and like the accolades that they should receive.
Mm-hmm. David brings up an interesting point in the chat that Mike Bailey might end up in MLPW, which, don't get me wrong, Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling is fantastic, but I'm hoping that's not the end goal, because I think I want to see Mike Bailey at least be TNA World Champion before he ends up leaving TNA, if he chooses to do so. I want to see a Mike Bailey world title run. So
also, from what I've seen, it doesn't seem like MLPW is like exclusive, because they've got people like from all over, popping up. So it doesn't seem like it's something that you would have to only go do that.
Right.
And maybe they're going to be people that they're going to try and sign to do more of their main stuff, to be part of their like main roster. But at this point, it's just restarting and like really building up. So I would hope he would get to do some bigger things before moving over to that company, if he's going to do that at all.
Right. So as we said, Mr. Zachary Wentz is your new X Division champion. I am happy for him, but I'm also bummed for Bailey. And I will admit, it was cool to see Wentz with the X Division Championship and being announced as the X Division Championship at No Mercy earlier, like an hour ago. But I feel we could have done more with Bailey. So hopefully that means Wentz and Bailey will have a rivalry. If that's the case, then I'm cool with that. I'm okay with that. But only time will tell, and I will be texting Andrew, be like, save me, because they didn't do what they need to do. Andrew, even though he's going to be taking a hiatus for the fall, he's going to hear me complain about a lot of things. So just be prepared, Andrew.
It's all right. I'll do some of my wrestling viewing vicariously through all of you. I'll still watch some of it here and there where I can, but yeah.
Yeah, you also have no choice. You're continuing to be in the predictions league, because that's like the one thing we got to keep it serious. Alrighty, but we're going to move on. This was what opened up our main card. So one final thought. I forgot Riley was in this match. I'm going to be honest, because him and Laredo Kid were an afterthought to me. I feel like you could have just had a Fatal 4-Way Ultimate X and that would have been fine. But, I forgot Riley and Laredo were in this match, to be completely honest with everybody.
Yeah.
Though it was funny watching Hammerstone just like make the ropes dip when he was climbing. I was like, that's a lot of weight right there. But I wanted this to be better, and this was not a great start to the main card. It was okay at best. Which then we got this match, right? So, okay. I feel like me and Andrew are going to agree and disagree at the same time, because the in-ring was fine. It was fun. But again, the same problem that we talked about during the Countdown show. I felt like this is a good match for a weekly episode of TNA, not a pay-per-view match. Now, had you added I don't know, some sort of stipulation, a gimmick to this, maybe this could have been a number one contenders match, of some capacity. I don't freaking know. And I like Steve Macklin and I love Eric Young. Both of these are really great talents and they are amazing wrestlers. And they put on a fun, great match. But this was not worth the pay-per-view match. And I'm kind of sad. So this was just a singles match. No stipulation, no gimmicks, no stakes. This is just a match to have a match, because Eric Young thinks that Macklin wants to earn Eric Young's respect, but also has him in his side. The story was not clear leading into this.
No.
I was just like, this was weird. Now, had we built it that Macklin wants Eric Young's respect, or Eric Young won't give him Steve Macklin respect for whatever reason, then I would have been more okay with what we got. But we didn't know what we were getting in this match. We got this match. This was actually, the in-ring is always fantastic, but this did not scream PLE to me. Andrew, how did we feel about Macklin versus Young?
This match didn't, like I said, this was another match that didn't need to be on here. This felt like the Kazarian versus Kushida match. Like, they would have all been matches that we would see during Impact. It just felt like there was nothing to it. I agree with you. Like, at least put a stipulation or something with it. Make it a best 2 out of 3 falls. Make it a last man standing. Make it a no holds barred match. Make it an I quit match. Make it something. And like you said, if it was something about Macklin proving that he deserves to be there with a legend in TNA like Eric Young, make it something where he has to push Eric Young in order to get that respect. And you can have it come at the end where Eric Young does give him the respect, or he goes through all of that and Eric Young still doesn't give him the respect, and then we can continue off of that. But this was just, and like you said, the build-up to it was very confusing. I'll be honest, the only thing I could think of while you were talking, the thing I could think of the most while you were talking was Will talking about how big Steve Macklin's mouth is.
God darn it, Andrew. Hey, Will's not here, so we got to bring it.
Yeah. But I've got nothing against these two, but it felt like, again, we just had two people wrestling that we have no storylines for. I get it. Steve Macklin's trying to talk about how he was there and he was like dominating that championship match, and then ended up getting eliminated. And he thinks he deserves that title shot, and Eric Young thinks he's just basically, a new guy or not a new guy, but a newer person than Eric Young coming in to TNA, complaining about not getting a title shot. And so, make it for something, make it count, make it interesting. You have enough ways to do that in professional wrestling, and especially in TNA has its own like spices of matches. There's a lot we could have had happen here, and they just instead decided to give us a basic match.
I know, and it sucks because, like I said, I love Macklin and I love Young, but this was not it. So before we go on to our next match, kind of related question, because this question is probably going to be more interesting than what we talked about right now. I'm gonna be honest. But David, do y'all think D'Amore wants to get revenge on Len Asper and Anthem for firing him? I don't think so. At least it doesn't seem like that's it. At least. And I mean, he could have been just doing a good PR thing, but when he was on the Chris Van Vliet, show, not what was it, like last week, a week and a half ago, he seems to be at peace with everything. He still doesn't agree with some of the decisions that Anthem makes, but he's not going to hold it against them. And to me, Scott D'Amore doesn't scream the person to kind of want to get even or get revenge too. He's just like, I like professional wrestling, so I didn't agree with the decision, but you know what? I still love TNA. Anthem is doing a good job. He even put Anthem over, saying that, they're doing a good job and everything. And you know what? I want to see them succeed.
Scott D'Amore seems like the kind of person that is going to live by the success is the best revenge kind of mantra. And, I'm sure it stung a lot when it happened. He would have liked for it not to have happened. And I'm sure there's decisions that are being made that he wouldn't make, but I think he's also looking at the opportunity to go to a place like MLPW, and lend his skills somewhere else. And the nice thing is, it feels like we're at a point in professional wrestling where we've gotten away from like the big two, and now we can have this variety of professional wrestling. And I think things like streaming services, and social media and everything has really made it to where we can be fans of so many different promotions. Wrestlers can show up all different places. They can build their own, like, themselves as a product. And so it enables these other smaller promotions to start building their way up and get more attention, and have more impact. No pun intended with TNA. I feel like Scott D'Amore seems like he sees more options is a good thing in professional wrestling. And so if he can't do it in TNA, he's going to go do it somewhere else, but not in spite of like somebody else, but in addition to. So I don't think he's like out for revenge, but I definitely think he's gonna try and be competitive against everybody that's gonna be that competition when it comes to a professionalism.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm excited for MLPW's first show. They got some really fun folks on there. We're excited as fans of TNA, Independent Wrestling, GCW, and just everywhere else. I'm definitely gonna have to check out that show in my spare time. And then I look at my schedule, it's like, how am I
Do
gonna
you have
do
spare
this?
time?
I don't for reals. Me and Andrew are in the same boat, but on different opposite ends of the spectrum. Well, actually, no. I feel like you can relate as an educator yourself in some capacity. The fall is always so busy for the school year. I hate it. I'm like, is it Christmas break yet?
Mhm.
All right. Well, we move on from this. As we said before, Macklin picks up the victory. Eric Young shakes his hand afterwards. Please let this be the end of this feud and let's get Macklin and Eric Young doing something else. I feel like Eric Young still got issues to resolve with Josh Alexander because we never really finished those. Honestly, I'm going to be honest too. We could have had Eric Young versus Frankie Kazarian because that's also a closure we did not really get either. So we'll see what happens with all of that. But we move on to our next match. And okay, so I'm going to be honest right here. My viewpoint is going to be a little skewed because I give this match grace, not Jordan, but I give this match a little bit of a pass because of what happened, which we'll get into. But we have a 6 knockout tag team match. We have our TNA Knockouts World Champion Jordan Grace teaming up with Danny Luna and Jody Threat, who are known as Spitfire, taking on the team of Ash by Elegance and Militia, which is made up of our Knockouts tag team champs Alicia Edwards and Masha Slamovich. On paper, I was like, okay, this is going to be a fun match. Though I feel like they kind of put it up to a week and a half too early before we got the match by Elegance, which also kind of set it up for this. So on paper, I was excited. And then all the women, the knockouts make their entrance. We get the match started. And like the first 2 minutes, 3 minutes passes by. I was like, okay, cool. And then we can't continue on talking about the match until we talk about what happened because this was scary, Andrew. I got worried for a hot second. So Andrew does a better job of explaining this. So Andrew, explain what ended up happening.
Well, we got the typical setup when you have the multi-person match of like, let's all just do our dive spots. And Jody Threat was the first one. She went out and she did like a tope suicina over the top rope. And I didn't realize it at first because they all went super fast. And so we saw her hit it. She took out the other three. Then Danny Luna went and did her suicide dive. It looked like she took out all three again, but when I went back and watched it, I realized it was only two of them. And then there was some confusion because Jordan Grace kept going for the setup, and then she just went out to the side of the ring. And when she went out, it was kind of disturbing because you saw Spitfire basically trying to pick up a limp Alicia Edwards, who was just eyes closed, completely out. So I had to rewind it and watch again. And what happened was Jody Threat went over the top rope, and when she came down and the other three were going to catch her, Alicia Edwards was basically to her right, and Jody Threat's elbow came down and caught Alicia Edwards like on the jaw or in the temple, and just knocked her out cold. You can see it if you go back and watch it. Her arms go stiff, and she's completely out of it. There was also a moment it looked like Ash by Elegance may have like had her nose hit, and I was worried she might have broken it, but then she went on the rest of the match and it seemed fine. So I think she just got like popped in the nose, and she was just checking it. But you can see like they go to pick up Alicia and she's just completely out cold. And then later on, after they try to like, which I really appreciated, all five of the competitors that were left actually moved to the opposite side of the ring. So this happened by the entrance ramp. They went to the other side, so they were closer to the hard cam, and the ring was separating them. So basically, they could focus on the action on one side of the ring while they checked on Alicia on the other side, and they could kind of take that focus off of her. But when they cut back to where you could see one of the medical staff and one of the referees were right by her, her eyes were open, but it was like no one was there. She was looking right up at the ceiling. And as someone who's watched a lot of combat sports, like it looked exactly like what happens when someone gets knocked out in one of those sports. She just went stiff. She went out cold. She fell flat to the ground. And then even when she came back too, she was still not present. And so they had to take her backstage, and we got basically a 3-on-2 handicap match.
It was definitely a scary moment, but I agree with you. Shout out to the other knockouts in this match for moving to the other side, which was really nice. And not just, the hard camp focusing on them, but it also gave a bit of privacy to Alicia too, because she just got clocked. And if I was in that position, there would be a variety of emotions. And also, because a fan caught this and posted on the internet, shout out to Tommy Dreamer for coming down, and once medical said, hey, we need to check her out, didn't try to pick her up and help her. He literally picked her up, cradled her, and carried her all the way to the back. And I was just like, you go, Tommy Dreamer. I know we talked trash about your digital media championship reign earlier in the year and towards the end of 2023. But you do have a heart, and I appreciate that you're there because you care about the talents and the knockouts division. Now let's get past that and talk about the match, because I was worried of how it was going to end up being a 2-on-3 handicap match. And I'm going to be honest, Ash and Masha kind of held their own against, Spitfire and Jordan. And I'm also going to be honest, if Alicia doesn't end up getting cleared, Ash and Masha as a tag team would kind of be awesome. Question mark.
Yeah, I think it would be if they're gonna make a pivot anywhere, like that could make some sense. I mean, Ash seems character-wise like the kind of person who would be like, "Ooh, this is an opportunity. I teamed with you all. Like, I'll take that title for you," so she can like get that title, to hold a title, and team up with Masha. And it might have to pivot a few storylines, but I think she could potentially be the one to do that. Yeah, they worked really well together. And you could see early on, I'm sure some of it was concern for, their colleague and friend, because we know, especially in TNA, we see their social media stuff where they travel around together. They post a lot of things together. They're really close. So I'm sure a lot of them were concerned for Alicia, and just professionally too. But then you also have to pivot, and, it's like it's like any live performance. One of the performers gets taken out. You're like, okay, how do we continue doing the show we were going to do with with a feature out of it? And so I think they had to like kind of work on the fly. But once they got past that initial, like that tension and stress, they started really rolling with it. And I thought they did a really good job of working together, especially because Ash and Masha don't work together ever. So I think they did a really good job. And I got to say, Jordan Grace and Spitfire, that is a jacked team. I mean, geez, they are some buff ladies.
That is, and again, I always have to remember too, because we look at all these women and it's just like, let's put this in perspective. Masha and Danny have not even hit 26 yet. Like, these women are just amazing. And there's a good amount of storytelling in here. Like, Jody just recently got into wrestling, like maybe 6 or 7 years ago. This is still new to her, and she's getting to be here. She had an awesome match against Masha at Bloodsport. Hopefully,
Jordan Grace is only 28.
Exactly. Listen, when we talk about the future of women's wrestling, just period, I feel like TNA has a bunch of women in their knockouts division, and also like even more established women like Alicia Edwards. And you know what? Ash is finding success after being let go from WWE. Yes, I will say the company's name because I think it was crime they let her go, because I think her and Kalani were a great tag team. But Ash says, she has more creative control. She's happy to be here. And you're like, how do you know that? Check out my interview with her. Like, it was fantastic. I have no interview experience, and I did it on the fly. Like, it was kind of nuts. But Jordan and Spitfire do pick up the victory here. Depending on what happens with Alicia next, if Alicia is cleared, I definitely see Spitfire going after the titles again. But if not, like if we have to pivot, Ash and Masha would work. We just need to come up with a new tag team name for them.
I will say that since we didn't do a review on it and you brought it up a little bit, that
match by Elegance was awesome.
That was a great match. Like, I really enjoyed
that. That was my favorite match for this past week. I'm not going to lie, Andrew. I love when gimmick matches work and they tell and further the story.
Well, and it was a match that really allowed Ash by Elegance, both as the performer and the character, it made sense why she was able to once again keep up with someone like Jordan Grace, who was just this like powerhouse that it's hard for anyone to compete with. They did such a good job. And it was a lot of fun, and I loved how it ended with like a little bit of the interference. You know, we got Rosemary back, so
shout out to Rosemary for also being on NXT this week. Her and Wendy Chu frightened me, and I'm here for it.
You put the two of them and Tatum Paxley together. I mean, you got a crazy girl squad right there.
You literally have a spooky dollhouse, and I'm here for it. So we're going to leave this match because then this was not the only. Well, this is new for us because we did not know that this match was happening until literally on the countdown show. So they're just like, okay, let's talk about the elephant in the room before we talk about the match itself. So obviously, over the last couple of weeks, we were building towards ABC defending their tag team titles against First Class, which is AJ Francis and Rich Swann. 2 weeks ago, we talked about it on our TNA review, me, you, and Will. We talked about Rich Swann being suspended and arrested for, substance abuse and checking himself in to kind of deal with that. And so when that broke, and we talked about 2 weeks ago, in the back of my head, I was wondering what was going to happen to ABC and for AJ Francis. I was like, oh, they're not going to put them on the card. That's unfortunate. But thankfully, TNA decided to pivot and still allow this match to happen, just in a different flavor, because we still had ABC defend their titles against First Class. But instead of AJ and Rich Homie Swann, it is AJ and Casey Navarro, which, as somebody who is slowly checking out more of Casey Navarro's work, and also me and Andrew are big fans of his sister, Diamante, in Ring of Honor. Honestly, I knew ABC was going to win, but that didn't hinder me. I was like, Casey Navarro, really impressed me this match because he made the most of his opportunity. I mean, we saw him 2 weeks ago in the final qualifier. Unfortunately, he did not get that spot in Ultimate X, but he still ended up on the card. And so he made the most of every moment. And I'm kind of digging Casey and AJ as, a tag team. And when Rich comes back, if we want to keep Casey and make it a trio, I'm here for it too. But this match was a lot of fun, and Casey impressed me. And you know what? Shout out to all four of these folks for still being able to put on a fun match despite, some changes of some real life situations that happened.
Yeah, I mean, Casey is someone who, I've followed him on social media for a while, and, he seems like someone who just makes the most of every opportunity that comes his way. He's still pretty young. He's phenomenal in the ring. He's so entertaining. Like I said, he would have been great in the Ultimate X match. I think he was a great person to have come in and work with this because he worked really well with ABC, and then also kind of like that polar opposite of AJ Francis, which kind of, he's like a faster, more agile Rich Swann. And so having him team with someone like AJ Francis, who's very much the like giant of the team, worked really well. I'm really glad that they did point out that in his last few appearances, he's now challenged for the tag team titles. He competed for a shot to challenge for the X Division title, and he challenged for the digital media title, which was also a last-minute replacement. Which was that a last-minute replacement for Rich Swann as well? Wasn't Rich Swann supposed to face Laredo Kid for the digital meet, or it was not a title match, and then it became a title match? It was weird.
Oh, okay. So I know which one you're talking about because this wasn't the first time, because I believe it was back at Under Siege. Rich Swann stepped in because Laredo Kid could not be there, and he ended up facing Joe Hendry. Yeah, he did. It's been a blur of TNA wrestling.
So, but he's basically he's challenged for 2 different titles and competed in a number one contender spot for another title in TNA in his last 3 appearances in TNA. So, I mean, credit to him for like getting those opportunities. I agree. I would love to see him continue on. It would be great if TNA wanted to sign him even just for a limited time, or enough to keep him around to do tapings here and there to be part of First Class. And I do think that when, Rich recovers and he's able to come back, I've always thought that First Class would work better as a multi-person team instead of just two people. I think you could play it up to where they could all perform together, perform singles. You could mix up the tag teams, have Casey and Rich together. You could have Casey and AJ together. You could have AJ and Rich together. So, you just mix up that flavor. And he fits into that. He brings a different style of like that gimmick that they're trying to pull off as First Class. And he's an excellent performer. So I think, he's someone else that I'm like, yeah, give him a chance to, prove what he's worth. But I also think after this, ABC needs a new big challenge. They need another tag team that's really going to be a threat to their titles. Ideally, a team that we haven't seen. But they need something else. ABC has basically been one of the two tag team champions since I've been watching TNA, since I came back basically a year ago. And it's basically been them and the Rascals with a few other people here and there, kind of coming in. But it's mostly been the two teams. So I think at this point, we now need to see some other tag teams step up and be a legitimate threat to ABC in those titles.
For reals. So, okay, so hear me out, right? So first I'm going to address David's comment real quick. No, I don't want them okay. On a professional level, no, I don't want Macklin in there. But because I'm here for the shits and giggles, I would absolutely love that. It would be ridiculous, make no sense, but it'd be crazy. But I'm just saying, Eric Young and Macklin kind of aren't doing anything at the moment. So I know we don't like thrown together tag teams, but if you figure out a way to get Macklin and Young on the same page and become a tag team, I actually would not mind it because it gives them something to do. But again, it's really tough.
I had that same thought.
So, all right. Well, we need to take a quick break. So we will be right back with our regular scheduled review. So grab a snack and we will be right back.
Yeah. Here we go. Can't decay, no. Feel the fury inside, try to bury my pride, but I'll rob the grave. Death, become my blade once more. Carrying a cross and the hilt's already fading. Leather in my grip, I never miss my swing. River running red from the dead, escaping. Heaven or hell, take the land between. And I bear this weight that I'm under, and no force could tempt a kneel. I bend for honor only, no this seal, it's not real. This shattered will define a spirit burning and honest. My demons paralyzed, terrified. They branded sacrifice, so tarnished early and often. My fury justified. Sealed up my fate and read the embers of scarlet taste. My blade remembers. Temper my crown, yeah. I wield what can't decay. No, feel the fury inside, try to bury my pride, but I'll rob the grave. My skin to stone, my flesh. This gravity is daunting. The poison breath, this blind of death cannot infect my conscience. Cause I've been here before. Bloodstained wounds on altar doors. A spirit burning and honest. My demons paralyzed, terrified. They branded sacrifice, so tarnished early and often. My fury justified. I decide. Sealed up my fate and break the embers of silence. My blade remembers. Temper my crown, yeah. I wield what can't decay.
Yeah. Here we go.
And we're back. I know I was dancing as we were getting along too. It's a good thing I decided to upload that transition. It makes everything so much easier.
Yes.
Alrighty. So we were just finishing our thoughts. I thought this tag team match was a very nice surprise. I enjoyed it.
I will say this match picked up, and the last three matches, this match and the next two, were definitely the top matches of the night for me.
Oh, absolutely. I was just like, because everything was okay. The last match we talked about, unfortunately, got stalled a little bit because of what happened to Alicia.
It was a good match too.
It was a good match too. I give that a little bit of grace, but for sure, for me, this was the pivot. I was like, it's like the Leonardo DiCaprio scene from Wolf of Wall Street. He's like, well, like paying more attention to it, because then we get into a 8-man tag team match. We have the entirety of the system, which is Moose, Brian Myers, Eddie Edwards, and Johnny Dango Curtis, JDC. Yeah. Whatever, it's still Dango to me. Taking on the very weirdly put together, but I'm kind of here for it, team of Mike Santana, Joe Hendry, and the Hardys. First and foremost, before we talk about the match itself, Joe Hendry wins at life for me. By including the Hardys in his entrance music and then mixing it in. I'm just like, Joe Hendry is living life. And if he wins the NXT championship tonight, the internet will explode. And I'm here to see what kind of chaos is about to go down. But honestly, and I can't believe I'm saying this, Andrew, this has been like the better built story going into Emergence, because individually, the Hardys, Joe Hendry, and Mike Santana have had problems with the system over the last couple of weeks, which has now culminated in this 8-man tag team match. I'm going to be honest. I'm looking at the faces. I'm looking at the heels. I definitely missed the point because I wanted Team Face to win, and that was my downfall because the system ended up winning, unfortunately. But I feel like I'm not mad at it, because if this is a reboot for the system, that's cool. I just feel that it was kind of a short-lived thing for them to be on the downslope of things. I think they should have lost here and then won at Victory Road, which also, you know, let's just talk about this. We'll talk about it during the main event, because we have one match made for Victory Road, and I'm still kind of confused as to how we got there, but, you know, we'll talk about it when we get there. But, Andrew, how did we feel about this 8-man tag?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was. I too was very surprised. I thought the faces were going to win this. I thought it was a really well structured match that allowed for some classic spots from the Hardys, while Santana and Hendry could do some of the more heavy lifting. I will say the biggest thing that I got out of this, and not that I had any doubts about it, but this really solidified it for me. Mike Santana is a world champion. He was my MVP for this match. He was in there for a lot of it for his team, and he just looks like he needs to be a world champion. Joe Hendry too, like seeing him perform and the way that he just engages with the audience, the way he picks up. Oh, well, if you don't want to talk about that match anymore, you don't have to.
I don't know what happened.
But he also has that quality of being a world champion in a very different way. I too thought that the system would lose this, but maybe this is a good way for them to be like, now they're on a winning, the winning side. Technically, Moose still has a contractual, rematch, and so do Edwards and Myers. So if we're gonna have a repeat tag team, they would make the most sense to go against ABC. So maybe that's what they're gonna do. They're gonna build now to the system, try and get back to their titles now that they've won one. But all in all, I mean, I thought this match was a lot of fun. It played to the nostalgia. It played to the hype of Joe Hendry. Also the nostalgia of Mike Santana. He has been around, and even though it was mostly as a tag team, we still know him. We still get hyped by all of the stuff that he does. It was fun that we got that moment of everyone hitting a big move. The system is always great. They're all great wrestlers in their own right. So yeah, I thought this was a really fun match, and I felt like the two tag match, I guess the 6-woman tag match that we got, the tag team title match that we got, they were good matches that each one took a step up, and this was a step up from the next and prepared us for the main event, which was another step up for me. So I really enjoyed this match. I thought it was fun. I don't think I need to see much more from the Hardys as far as the storylines go. But I'm excited to see what we're going to do with Mike Santana, Joe Hendry, and the system.
See, I got too excited. My microphone decided not to work for me. Mike and Moose still have yet to resolve whatever issue they got going on. So that definitely is the thing. Again, we shall see how No Mercy ends tonight. I want Joe Hendry to win the NXT championship. I think that'd be hilarious, but he's not going to, because I feel like that's also a disservice to Ethan Page too, because he's only had this title for a month. He won it at Heatwave in July. So we'll see what happens with all of that. But we are here talking about TNA. The system did pick up the victory, which then leads us into the final hour of our pay-per-view. Okay, I'm gonna be honest. I'm by the end of this, I was still excited we got this, but I forgot how long an hour actually is in terms of wrestling. And the last time we had an hour-long match was in TNA was Josh Alexander versus Speedball Mike Bailey, which was also really good. But I feel that was paced because they were also throwing each other, and Mike Bailey was being crazy in the ring. But I did like this match. So for the TNA World Championship in a 1-hour Iron Man match, we have our challenger, Josh Alexander, and taking on our champion, Nick Nemeth, the Wanted Man. Oh, my God. Him and Private Party need to figure it out, because every time I hear, oh, my God, immediately my brain wants to go, is that Private Party? Anyway, this was a 1-hour Iron Man match. If you are not familiar with how this works, this is an hour-long match where your goal is to get the most pinfall submissions countouts for yourself by the end of the time limit. Whoever has the higher score by the end of it is declared the winner. And for these types of matches, though, rules are still in effect. You can't do cheap shots. You can be disqualified if you get caught, which we have seen in past Iron Man matches. Again, the last hour match we had was Josh Alexander versus Speedball Mike Bailey at the end of 2022. And the last time I saw an Iron match was actually the Hardys versus Claudio and Sheamus for the tag titles, for the Raw Tag Team Championships. And let me tell you, that was like 2016, 2017. So it's been a very long while.
Didn't Danielson have a Iron Man match in AEW?
Oh yeah, that's right. He had an Iron Man match against MJF. It went for a whole hour. That one was really great, but it also, it was just nuts. I forgot that happened. That was last year too. Again, there was so much wrestling going on. I am not entirely sure. Anyways, so I want to start with the good. Okay. So I think both of these men are very talented, and I'm super happy that Nick won. And the in-ring was okay. Here's the thing. I know it's hard to try to plan out and space out a match that is an hour long, because you have to do certain lengths of it, and they were winded by the end of this. I have never seen Josh Alexander sweat so much than I did in this match. You know what? Now that I'm talking about it, I think I actually liked it. It's just that the first 20 minutes kind of took a bit to get there. But once we got the first pinfall, then the rest of the match was fine. But those first 20 minutes was a lot of back and forth and a lot of setup. And I'm just sitting there. I'm like, I'm engaged. I'm watching them. I love these two. But damn, these first 20 minutes are taking forever.
Yeah, it started off slow and it had me a little worried about how things were going to go, but I felt like it picked up, and once it started going, like, it was nice to see Nick Nemeth really try and keep up with Josh Alexander in the grappling department. You know, they played up a lot of his wrestling history in college and stuff. And I thought he did a great job, and then it was great that, you know, it was like he could keep up with it for a while. And then he had to go back to doing his style while Josh Alexander used his style. And I liked that as we went along more, Josh Alexander became more and more brutal, which I think is letting us see more and more of that heel Alexander. So I thought it was great. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the way they built up to each of the, you know, the losses. I thought there were a couple opportunities where they could have had more. They talked about it a little bit on commentary. So I understand it's a video game, but my strategy in any of the wrestling video games where you can do an Iron Man match has always been, you go get a chair and you hit your opponent with the chair, you take one loss, and you can usually get at least two other victories out of it. And they talked a bit about it, is like Alexander could have gotten some foreign object, which, you know, he eventually did, but just blatantly hit Nemeth with it and knock him out with, you know, a chair shot or whatever, take one and get two. So, like, if, you know, you could do something to completely incapacitate your opponent, and then it doesn't matter that you took one DQ loss, because now you're going to get a bunch and you've already weakened him. So it's like that's always been my issue with Iron Man matches, is it's a war of attrition. So you can take a loss of the battle to win the war. And no one ever does that. So I was kind of hoping that Josh Alexander was going to do it, because he definitely did some setups. I did like the fact that they talked about, like, when Josh Alexander went through the table and they were like, oh, the referee can't do a disqualification because he doesn't know who set up the table. But we've seen multiple. Why would going through that table be any different than going through the announce table? No one gets DQ'd for that, because, as my understanding, the unwritten rule is you can hit your opponent. You can hit something with your opponent. You can't hit your opponent with something. So it's like you don't get DQ'd for running your opponent into a steel pole or the guardrail or the steps. But if you pick up the steps and hit your opponent with the steps, then that's a DQ. So that, you know, I was always like, well, how are you going to DQ him, especially when it wasn't hit? Like, he just back body dropped him and the guy went over the top rope through a table. So that's just funny storytelling for me. But ultimately, this match was a ton of fun. It was my match of the night. I thought by the end of it, I really appreciated the work that both of these two put into it. And it was a good match to have Nick Nemeth beat another contender and potentially move on to the next one. And still have Josh Alexander look strong as a kind of a dangerous heel, that we can see him go on and face some other people. You know, maybe someone tries to question his, you know, commitment or ability because he lost to Nemeth, and so now he's got to take somebody else out and prove that he still deserves to be at the top.
I agree with you. This was my favorite match of the evening, but again, I agree with you too. I'm like, we could have more so Josh, because he is the heel in this, but let's take a loss. And I think that's why I ended up liking Danielson and MJF's Iron Man match, because of the fact that MJF actually, I believe, did something like that. He took the first loss, which allowed him to get 2 more wins. And so it was kind of nuts. But we have reached the end of our Emergence review, Andrew. So let's talk about it. There were some high points, there were some low points. So now we got to give our final ratings, and then before we get into our final ratings though, because I almost missed it. As soon as the match was over, I was like, there are only like 4 minutes left on here. What is about to go down? Randomly, Mr. JBL walks in, Mr. And then he whispers something to Nick Nemeth's ear and walks away. I was like, what does this even mean? Why are you here? We just saw you at GCW. Why are you in TNA? Like, what is going down?
Maybe David's right. Maybe there's going to be a GCW invasion into TNA.
Now, if that is the case, I'm here for it. But I just thought it was very bizarre.
Yeah.
And if we don't get an answer for it in the next couple weeks, I'll be like, why was this here?
I also love the fact that it looked like he was wearing the exact same thing that he wore in GCW.
He did!
So it almost looked like he showed up there and then he just like traveled over, didn't change at all, and just like showed up in TNA.
It is so weird. I'm telling you, them country boys like them like jeans, man. I don't know. I'm pretty sure this will lead to something. At least I hope it leads to something, because if we don't get answers in the next couple weeks, I'll be like, why? Okay, sure. But, thankfully the internet is awesome, because they caught this at the end when, Emergence went off air, because Nick Nemeth addressed the crowd. And we come to find out that Nick Nemeth has his opponent set for Victory Road in 2 weeks. And it seems that Moose is cashing in his rematch clause, because it is going to be Nick Nemeth versus Moose at Victory Road for this championship. And the internet was not having it. They were like, again, really? I'm like, what do you want him to do? Like, it makes sense. If Nick can beat Moose, then we could get plethora of new challengers. Like, it's fine. Let Moose get this out of the way. I'm hoping Moose loses, because if Nick loses, I don't know what we're doing. But, we shall see what happens with all that. So I'm not worried about it. And, of course, Victory Road is in 2 weeks, so who knows what other matches we're getting.
I have a theory that
an Austin theory? No, just kidding.
Yeah. I think because he's challenging so early for the world title, I think what we're going to see is Nick Nemeth win, and I think we might see the system turn on Moose.
Yeah, I could definitely see that as well. Moose is going to get ousted. Which is going to be funny, because then you have everybody that Moose has made enemies with over the last couple of months, which is pretty much the whole entire locker room at this point. So it'd be very, very interesting. And I agree with you, David. I am glad the wrestling business is booming too, man. Like, holy crap. There's everything and everywhere. It is a fun time to be a wrestling fan in 2024. Yeah. Alrighty, so I got some fun news to share with Andrew off camera, so I want to get there as fast as I can, but not doing this. So Andrew, we had some high points, we had some low points. You know what? I'm gonna shock the world first. I'm gonna give my score for Emergence. So okay, the last 3 matches definitely carried the rest of this pay-per-view. And then, the 6 knockout tag team match, despite everything that happened, was a fun match. I will say the first half was really tough for me to get through, including the countdown show. And again, with PCO and Alicia Edwards, and also shout out to Gia Miller for posting on social media that PCO and Alicia have entered concussion protocol. So we will know more as soon as that is all done with that to see how they are. I'm stuck between giving this 2 numbers. Adolfo will kill me if I give it a half, so I can't give it a half empanada rating.
He's not here.
That's true.
You don't have to, no matter what, trauma parents put into us, you don't have to clean your plate. You can leave food behind. It's fine.
Fine. I don't know if Andrew's going to agree with me, and this is going to suck because this is the last one we're doing until Bound for Glory together. I'm giving this a 6.5 out of 10. I think this was okay at best. The countdown in the first half of the show made it really tough for me, and it wasn't until we got to our knockouts match beyond that it started to pick up, especially during ABC and First Class's match. I think that definitely put it into the next gear for me to be paying more attention to it. But as a whole, this is not my favorite TNA pay-per-view this year. And looking back at all the scores I've gave the rest of them this year, this is the lowest rated one, which sucks because Emergence last year was fantastic. again, we had Sonata versus Jake something, and that ended up being my favorite match of the whole entire card, which was a lot. But yeah, I have to give this a 6.5. This was a tough one, and I love TNA to death, but this was an okay product at best. This was not one of their stronger shows this year.
Yeah, no, I agree. Looking back at this, looking at my review, I realized it's kind of a bummer that both TNA and Ring of Honor for me ended on such a low note. I give it a 6. I thought overall the card was a little lackluster. It was underproduced. It would have received a higher score if this was an episode of like a weekly episode of Impact. I would have scored this higher. The main event really felt like it belonged on a PLE, but it was too little too late. I understand that there were some unplanned changes that happened, some injuries that happened during the show. But those things aside, it just really felt like there wasn't a lot of development around the matches. Things felt phoned in. Like there wasn't a lot of production and things that could have been put into it. Like matches like Young versus Macklin could have had more put to it that made it felt like a PLE. Even though we were in a different arena and there was different setups, there was nothing that felt special about the night. We didn't get any really big surprises or really big oh my god moments outside of JBL showing up at the very end, but even that kind of was like it was like, what's he doing here? Oh, is that it? But did he say something? And I'll be honest, the go home show for this was a better show than this was.
If I'm being honest, I know we could have had another knockouts match on here. Maybe have Militia go up against, Spitfire, and maybe if Spitfire won, then they get a tag team match at Victory Road. Could have been fun. And honestly, we could have actually had the match by Elegance here. I would have loved the match by Elegance here at Emergence. Like, I thought that would have been fantastic.
And you still could have had the same outcome happen. You still could have had Rosemary show up. You still could have had Shenanigans go on to protect the Grace and Ash, rivalry and feud. So then that way it wasn't ended here. This was a mediocre PLE, and it would have been a pretty solid weekly show. So for that, I had to give it less points.
It is. So before we do our, last bits and stuff right here, I finally found the time to add all of our scores together so far in this predictions league we have for TNA. So we didn't start the whole predictions league until April. So this was, it actually wasn't Rebellion. We just did this after Rebellion happened. So the scores you're about to see encompasses, and also Will didn't get his stuff in for Rebellion, so we couldn't count it anyways. But
I feel like I did better at the beginning of the year too. Jeez.
And honestly, we probably did, because we didn't do Hard to Kill, we didn't do the February and March, and we didn't do Rebellion. So the scores you're about to see encompass what we have done since then, which includes our scores from Under Siege, Against All Odds, Slammiversary, and Emergence. So let me put this up here. So I'm going to start with third place. So in third place happens to be Will Papaosa himself. He ended Emergence with 3-4 and an overall of 18-18. So yeah, so he's 50-50 for this one. In second place is Andrew. He ended Emergence with 5-2 with an overall record of 22-14. And then leading the pack, but not by much, is me. I ended Emergence with 5-2 as well, but my overall record is at 25-11. I'm gonna be completely honest. Under Siege is what really helped me, because whereas you and Will got 6-3 for that pay-per-view, I ended with 8-1. So that, I'm telling you, these weird pay-per-views always put us in the weirdest positions for sure. And I'm just like, I don't know what's happening anymore. It's the same thing for AEW. I was in dead last, and then Forbidden Door pulled me ahead because I only got one match wrong out of a 12-match card.
It's because you know all the people outside of AEW better than everybody else.
I know. Except I didn't do so great for All In. Crosswave actually beat everybody. He got first for that one. And so he's
Nice.
slowly catching up to me. So that is going to be it for us here at, the Grapple Gurus. Before we do sign off and do our little bit of outro, as we mentioned on Friday's ROH review, Andrew, this is Andrew's last show for us. For the fall, at least. He will be returning hopefully in the winter for sure. So, I mean, we did a short outro for ROH, but now that it's just me and Andrew, and Will does feel the same weeks, it's gonna be tough getting back used to just me and Will for TNA, because we started with just us two, and then you tagged in and we became a really fun trio, and you guys ended up becoming, don't tell the other boys, but you became one of my favorite. You guys were one of my favorite teams. I look forward to reviewing weekly show with you. And I can't speak for Will, but I can speak for me. Thank you for everything that you've done with us since joining. I'm going to miss you. Again, it is not goodbye. It is a see you later. And me and Will do our best to keep this from burning to the ground, or at least try and hopefully TNA doesn't burn it to the ground. And I look forward to you returning for Bound for Glory for our watch along, and the review for Bound for Glory, at least, because I couldn't imagine doing a Big Four pay-per-view without you. So I'm going to miss you, Andrew, but I want you to know that you are loved, appreciated. And again, you become one of my brothers here. So thank you for everything.
Like I said before, thanks for, letting me join in on the fun and join this team. And it's been really fun. And, I look forward to still getting to do the things that I can jump in for. So, I'll still be here for a lot of the fun, especially the group chats.
Awesome. And then we'll figure out something, because I definitely want to do Bloodsport in November since we got that date. So we'll figure something out if it will let you, but
Cool.
But not the last time forever, but at least until Bound for Glory. Andrew, do you have any final, thoughts, words, things you would want to say, get off your chest before we sign off?
No, I hope TNA continues to build the way it does. I have a lot more hope for TNA than I do for Ring of Honor at this point.
Me and you both.
And, I will once again shamelessly plug the one place that I'm still reviewing, which is GCW. They just had an awesome show on Saturday, so go check that out. And the wonderful thing is they get a lot of people from TNA over there too, so check them out as well.
I love it. Well, for now, this is myself and Andrew signing off for the evening. And from us to Papa Oso, Will, and the rest of the BC WrestlePod family, remember, take care of yourself, love one another, stay Bi-Conic, and more importantly than anything, you always deserve to finish your story. So until next time, well, actually, until tomorrow for No Mercy and for Bash in Berlin, remember, we love you, sayonara, adios, and see ya, Space Cowboy.